What's up, guys? It's Dan from Coin Bureau Trading, back at it again with another crypto market update. Today we've got Cardano, Chainlink, and Algorand. I'm sure you're all wondering what these cryptos have been up to, how low are they going to go, when are they going to bounce. If this is the kind of content that you enjoy, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ping that notification bell. Before we get started, do keep in mind that nothing in this video is financial advice. It's just my personal analysis of these cryptos. Your analysis can be different, and if it is, that's awesome, because the more difference of opinion that we have, the better traders and the better investors we're all going to become. So with that being said, guys, I want to start by kind of doing a little bit of a throwback here on Cardano, because it's something that I think a lot of people are overlooking. I'm always looking for the stuff that no one's paying attention to. And in this case, I think the thing that everyone is missing with Cardano is USDA, this stable coin, kind of like this fully compliant centralized stable coin that's, let's say, tailor-made for Cardano. Of course, it had an initial launch back in January. To my knowledge, I was actually checking this before I started filming. I don't believe that retail access has opened up for USDA yet. Please fact check me in the comments if that's not the case. But based on what I could see, like based on on-chain data, it doesn't look like USDA has grown that substantially. And I suspect that's because retail access is not live yet. Regardless, the reason why I bring this up, guys, is because, of course, the US government, or rather Congress specifically, they're in the process of passing stablecoin regulations. And some of you might remember, again, for another throwback, that the Trump administration had, or these specifically these pro-crypto politicians, alongside the Trump administration, had basically promised that they would try and have these laws passed within the first 100 days of Trump being in office, which is April 29th, if memory serves. So that means that by the end of this month, we should see stablecoin regulations live. And this is more realistic than you think when you consider that the Senate stablecoin bill is going to be going up for a vote in the Senate very soon. The House stablecoin bill still needs to be approved by the committee, and then it will go up for a vote in the House. Of course, there's probably going to be a little bit of back and forth there, but this does suggest that these stablecoin regulations are coming sooner rather than later. And of course, this is going to be big for stablecoins everywhere, whether it's, like XRPs, or rather Ripple's a stablecoin, and in this case, a Cardano stablecoin, which of course is issued through Anzens, which I believe is affiliated with Emergo, or a subsidiary of Emergo, which is one of the companies working on Cardano. Anyways, of course, that brings me to the chart here. This is where things get really interesting. I'm going to do things a little bit differently this week. I want to use the Bollinger Bands here to show you guys kind of how my personal strategy when it comes to using these indicators. I noticed that my video about the technical indicators last week did pretty well. Out of my whole trading series, that seems to be the one that you guys like the most. So I want to take you through, I guess, some real world examples, let's say some real time examples of how I use these indicators and how and how I basically, how it informs my view, and hopefully you guys find this helpful. So some of you who watched that video, you might remember that the way that I use the Bollinger Bands is I start basically all the way down from the 4-hour. So right now we're on the 4-hour chart, and basically what we're looking at is to see, okay, is ADA above the Bollinger Band moving average, this middle line? Is ADA above this middle line on the 4-hour? And as you can see, it's starting to break above that middle line, which is awesome. So that's kind of like the first sign that we could see, keyword, that we could see a recovery materialize in the coming days. Of course, it depends on what happens with the tariffs tomorrow, but basically, ADA being above the Bollinger Band moving average on the 4-hour is kind of like the first confirmation that things are looking pretty okay here. Like we're seeing early signs of a recovery. This dip down to 63 cents, that could have been the bottom, right? Could, keyword. So now turning over to the daily, we can look and see here, okay, if we do see a break above the 4-hour, which is kind of what we're seeing right now, then what is the next level that ADA will go to in the short term, like I'm talking in the next couple of days? The answer in this case would be probably somewhere around 71 cents, because that's where the Bollinger Band moving average is on the daily chart. So you see, like, we're kind of zooming out and zooming out and zooming out to see what are the next levels, right? So let's say that the ADA gets to the 71-cent level. It's only like a 7% pump over the next couple of days, which, again, depending on what happens with the tariffs, I do think that could happen. And one thing that's worth noting in this case is that we could see, I'm not calling for a move like this necessarily, but you can see that ADA is currently squeezing. That's what happens when prices have been chopping in a range, which is basically what's been happening now for the last month, roughly. ADA has basically been chopping in a range, in almost in a very tight range, in fact. And you can make the case that it's been chopping in a range ever since early February. You can see, minus this big pump in the middle here. I think that was the Trump strategic reserve thing. You can see that ADA has basically been chopping in a range. I know that's scary. I know it sucks, but it's not bearish. It's completely normal. This is something I've been underscoring. But anyways, so ADA has been basically chopping sideways here for 2 months at this stage. And we can see now that ADA is squeezing kind of the same way that it was back here at the end of February. We can see that ADA has a similar squeeze. And if it was to get get back above the daily Bollinger Band, then that would suggest that the squeeze is going to be to the upside rather than to the downside, which is, of course, what everyone is worried about. And of course, when you have the squeeze, it kind of tells you that we're about to see a big move up or a big move down. And of course, everyone is feeling super bearish. They think it's over. They think that with the tariffs tomorrow, that ADA is going to squeeze down and it's all over. I'm not so convinced, guys. But let's zoom out even more here and go to the weekly. So if ADA was to get above the daily Bollinger Band moving average, then logically the next level to watch would be the weekly Bollinger Band moving average, which is up here around 90 cents currently. And of course, these moving averages change as time goes on. In the next couple of days, if ADA is still chopping, that Bollinger Band moving average on the daily will probably come down a little bit more, maybe down to 71 cents instead of 70 cents instead of 71 cents. So of course, these levels are dynamic, which is kind of what I like about them, is that, instead of just using basic support and resistance like those levels I was using before, those levels obviously are static, right? You just draw a line and the line is there. But in this case, the line is constantly moving, kind of like a moving average, which is basically what the Bollinger Band moving average is. It's literally in the name. But anyways, so as you can see here, guys, if we were to see, again, break above the 4-hour, check, break above the daily, potentially pending. Once that happens, the next level would be a break above the next level there would be the Bollinger Band moving average on the weekly. And if we zoom out even more to the monthly, you can see, and in this case, I guess answers the question of how low could ADA go. In my opinion, ever since ADA got above this, of course, it was chopping around this range and you could see there was a little bit of a squeeze. But if we zoom out a little bit more here, guys, you could make the case that, again, we're somewhere like in the beginning phases, like somewhere here of a bigger squeeze to the upside, which is still coming. The lowest that ADA could fall based on the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly, which if you remember from the video that I did, when you zoom out all the way to the monthly, that level kind of tells you when a crypto is in a bull market versus a bear market. You can see that when ADA was below, it was very clearly in a bear market. When it was above, it was in a bull market. Here was kind of chopping around the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly, which of course makes things tricky. But right now we can see that it's clearly above this Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly. You can see that when ADA dropped I think it was back in either late January or early February, it tagged that line. So that was kind of a sign that that was probably the bottom. But if it was to fall lower, then it would probably retest this bottom line here around 55 cents. And if ADA was to fall below that, then that would be justification, in my view, to actually flip bearish and think that the bull market is over. But so long as ADA is at least around this Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly, ideally above it, then the bull market for ADA is still intact. And again, I believe that we're somewhere kind of like in this early innings, kind of like how you saw here before, squeeze on the monthly, big move higher. Now we're getting a bigger squeeze on the monthly. So how big do you think the move is going to be after that, right? But of course, this is over the coming months. And it's worth pointing out, guys, that, these big moves that we see here, they do come over the period of, let's say, 3 to 4, 5, maybe 6 months, right? So in relative to the cycle, there's still enough time to have this type of move. Historically speaking, many of you will know that like the crypto market tends to rally around the fall. I personally think it's going to, the cycle top will be in by the summer, but let's just say for the sake of argument that it's going to rally in the fall, like always, then we still have, what that is, like 6 or 8 months, right? Which is more than enough time to have a move like this again. And I do think that that's going to come. So, when you guys are in the comments and saying, how could you be bullish? How could you be bullish? This is why I can be bullish, because quite clearly, when you zoom out on the monthly with the Bollinger Bands, ADA looks completely fine. It's literally just been chopping for the last 2 months, which is extremely painful. But you can see here, like this drop down here in February, down to 50 cents. That was where it tagged the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly. And, anyone who bought that dip, you basically probably hit the local bottom there, notwithstanding the crash over the summer of 2024, which is when I was accumulating a lot of altcoins. Anyways, guys, as you might have been able to tell, we were using Binance there. Be sure to take advantage of our deal using the link in the description. It's a 20% trading fee discount with up to $600 in bonuses. That's the biggest discount that you can get. It's a deal that's available exclusively through the Coin Bureau. It's super easy to take advantage of. You just click that button. In this case, just click the link in the description. It'll take you straight to this page. Just enter your personal info. Signing up literally takes 2 or 3 minutes. You get a trading fee discount. The exchange gets a new user, and we get a cut of your trading fees. That's how the Coin Bureau makes its money. We're not sponsored by any crypto projects. We don't have an agenda. We don't care what cryptos you like, as long as you're looking to buy, sell, trade, anything like that, or even just store your crypto. We also have deals on hardware wallets. We're just here to give you the tools to basically navigate the crypto market and the crypto ecosystem. So again, do check out the link down in the description. It'll help you out. It doesn't cost you a thing. All these deals are completely free. Anyways, guys, moving on now to Chainlink. So this is where things get a little bit interesting. One thing that how do I explain this? One thing that one of my biggest criticisms, let's say, of Chainlink, and this applies to any crypto for that matter, is that, of course, Link is used to pay for fees for oracles and stuff like for the Oracle services, right, and all the other products and services that Chainlink provides. But the thing is that Link, of course, fortunately, unfortunately, is not a fiat currency. It's not like an actual, and for that matter, it's not even necessarily a cryptocurrency that people like to hold. Like, of course, there's lots of Link holders long term, but if you're an institution and you're holding Link and or you're being paid in Link rather because you're running one of these nodes, or one of these how would you say, one of these oracles, right? Then you're probably regularly selling Link. So basically, every single time someone is buying Link to pay for the oracle, the institution that's kind of running the oracle will then sell Link. So the effect is kind of neutral on Link's price overall, like on a supply demand perspective. But again, this is true for most cryptos. But it's interesting that recently now Chainlink introduced payment abstraction, which basically makes it possible to pay for anything, to pay for Chainlink's oracle, and of course this gets converted to Link in the background. In my view, this is, I would, you can call me crazy, but in my view, this is kind of evidence that the Chainlink brass, the Chainlink leadership, Sergey and those guys, they're probably aware of the fact that, hey, like, on the abstraction front, of course, there's probably some hurdles there, but also they need to think is like, how can we drive more demand for Link? And this is a great way of doing that. I do think that this is a fundamental change that's going to help Link a lot in the coming months. It's not something, that's going to cause a pump tomorrow or anything like that. But I guess key takeaway of like all the rambling there is that Chainlink has basically just made a change to their tokenomics, for all intents and purposes, that should increase the demand fundamentally, and that's going to help out a lot in the coming months. So I'm not like bashing Link here. I'm just saying that this change is very bullish. It's kind of addressing an issue that I personally saw on Chainlink and I've seen for a few years now. Again, it's an issue that's present in many cryptos, and other cryptos have also taken steps. Like with those burns, right? When they do like this token burns for fees, that's a way of like improving that supply and demand equation there. And Link seems to be doing something similar here with the Chainlink payment abstraction. I think this is really awesome and is going to help Link out a lot. Anyways, with all that out of the way, we can use the same methodology, guys, that we did here with ADA, so with Link. So starting on the 4-hour, we can see that Link is above the Bollinger Band moving average on the 4-hour. It hasn't seen a clean break above that yet, but it's looking good, starting to squeeze a little bit. So, that potentially suggests that we're going to see some follow through. So looking good on the 4-hour, early signs of recovery, very, very early signs of recovery, right? I'm not saying it's like, obviously this isn't much of a recovery, but it's showing us early signs that, we could see a recovery here. So now we zoom out to the daily. Okay, we can see if Link recovers, or starts to recover rather, what's the next level to watch? The next level here would be around $14.20, which would be, again, roughly, I don't know, like 4% or something from its current level. So nothing too crazy, but still a good sign, right? If Link was to get above that, then that's another good sign, confirmation. Okay, what's the next level to watch? Zooming out to the weekly, the next level to watch would be around $19, $19.50, let's say $20 just for sake of argument, which of course would be around a 40% gain from the current price. That sounds unprecedented. You might think, how could Link possibly pump so much? Until you remember, guys, like, Chainlink is critical infrastructure for a lot of crypto projects. I believe that Trump's World Liberty Financial is holding Link and has been buying Link. Even a lot of institutions I know, like from listening to traders and stuff, they love trading Link. They love holding Link. So that's, one of many things to keep in mind. And also, now that we've zoomed out to the weekly, it kind of underscores the fact, guys, that I guess the weekly kind of shows a little bit better, that Link has basically just been chopping for the last month, right? Of course, it did see another leg lower. To be honest, I was not expecting this leg lower to be this big, but that happens from time to time, and Link has just basically been consolidating in this range. And I guess in tying into my first video about the crypto for beginners, you always have to look is like, okay, are we in an accumulation phase or a distribution phase? Obviously, what we saw late last year was a distribution phase for Link, and now we're very clearly in an accumulation phase. And what's going to come next? Obviously, they're going to pump it up, right? It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take some weeks. I personally believe that April is going to be pretty choppy. You'll know that if you watch yesterday's video. But anyways, the next level for Link would be around 1950, and we can zoom out even more to the monthly to get a sense of like, okay, what is basically the lowest that Link could fall. So this is kind of like, tying into what we saw in the ADA chart, is that Link is currently below the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly. But of course, we're on the first day of the month here. So, I wouldn't take it too literally here, and just to keep in mind that any kind of movement around the Bollinger Band moving average, so long as Link is somewhere within range of that's completely fine. So this is a little bit scary, but it's completely fine. Again, like we saw here with ADA, and I was zooming out to the monthly. You can see that ADA saw a similar thing here. It was below the Bollinger Band moving average for a couple months, and then it recovered. And I do think that we're going to see the exact same thing here for Link, which by next month, this month I do think is going to be pretty choppy, but by next month we should start to see continuation of a recovery. And again, like, you could imagine, of course, the Bollinger Bands don't go back that far here on Binance, but you could imagine that Link saw a squeeze and a move higher, and we're seeing the same thing here, except much bigger, a big squeeze that's forming, and eventually I do think that's going to move higher. If we do see, Link rolling over, let's say, I don't know, falling lower than $10, if it was to roll below that level, then yeah, that would be reason to be bearish, but there's no reason to be bearish. When you zoom out, Link looks completely fine, and I honestly don't understand. I mean, I guess if you bought all the way up here somewhere around $30, then yeah, I understand why you're feeling pretty brutal. But like, if you didn't buy the absolute top, let's say spring, or like early last year or last fall, then you should be fine and shouldn't be complaining too much. Anyways, guys, moving on now to Algorand. So similar idea, I guess, to like to Cardano and to Chainlink. I'm like messing up the words here, guys. All these A's and C's and everything. Anyways, tokenized real world assets. This is another thing that a lot of people have forgotten about. And, going back in time again, everyone seems to forget that like BlackRock and I think Bank of America and all these institutions, they've been pressuring the SEC to basically approve of the tokenization of more assets. And what's really interesting, the SEC hasn't done that yet. I think that they're still having these like roundtable discussions. Some of you guys may have heard. They're still going back and forth, probably thinking, what should these specific regulations be there? But this is not something that requires an act of Congress, because if you think about it, when you're tokenizing assets like stocks and bonds, you're tokenizing things that already have regulatory clarity, right? Like you don't really need like an extra regulation for the specific tokenization, but you do need standards for like, how things should be tokenized and like what oracles are they going to use, right? Stuff like that. And that's probably what's in discussion now behind the scenes. But the point being, guys, is that these large asset managers and mega banks, they've been pushing for asset tokenization for a while. The market cap of tokenized real world assets has continued to grow even as crypto has crashed over the last couple of months. And this is, of course, another thing that a lot of people are forgetting. But the point being is that the tokenized real world asset narrative, that's still kind of coming, and Algorand is really positioning itself for that. Here they have these tokenized water credits, which to be honest is a little bit spooky. I hope I never have to worry about having enough credits to have water. But in all seriousness, guys, like Algorand has been very, active in that tokenized real world asset scene. Same for Chainlink for that matter. And I do think that this is something to watch. I do think Algo is going to benefit from that. Which, of course, brings me to the Algo chart. So, surprise, surprise, Algo is looking kind of the same as ADA, as Link. And if you were to look at most altcoins, they look the same. We'll be taking another look at more altcoins tomorrow, of course. But you can see that Algo is in the process of potentially breaking above the Bollinger Band moving average on the 4-hour. We'll see if that happens. By the end of the day, we should have a clear sign. You can see that a squeeze is forming. Hopefully that squeeze won't be to the downside, but I do think, of course, I've been saying for a long time now that the risks are to the upside, especially when you consider that, the Algo has basically just been trading here. It's been chopping in this range since, what is that now? I don't know, like a month, 2 months, right? It's easy to forget and it can be very frustrating, but it's not bearish, right? It's just chopping. It's literally just chopping. Anyways, moving to the daily, we can see, okay, if Algo was to get above that 4-hour Bollinger Band moving average, the next level to watch would be around 19 cents, which is, of course, around 6% up, which is, not too big, but, getting above that level again would be confirmation that we're starting to see a recovery. Similarly to ADA, we can see that Algo here is squeezing, and it's actually pretty typical. It's something I should have mentioned earlier. Oftentimes, you'll see something like this where the Bollinger Band moving average will be the Bollinger Band, will be squeezing, and then you'll see a move to the downside, and everyone just assumes that the squeeze is going to continue to the downside, but then you just see a reversal, and it squeezes to the upside, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm just saying that's something that happens pretty frequently. So don't get too caught up when you see the squeeze and you see the price is starting to squeeze down. You need to wait until there's like a proper, move out of this Bollinger Band, if that makes any sense. Like you start to see this melt up or melt down. Anyways, guys, so yeah, that's something to keep in mind is like, again, when you see the squeeze and you see the prices squeezing down or squeezing up for that matter, don't get too excited yet. You need to wait until there's a squeeze moving up and you can see, like something like this where you can see really starts grinding up along this Bollinger Band, the outer range, right? When it starts grinding up above the upper level or grinding along the lower level, that's when you know that the squeeze is actually playing out to the upside or to the downside. And of course, here we did see a little bit of a movement around the lower range here. But anyways, moving on now, guys, to the weekly chart. So if Algorand was to get above the Bollinger Band moving average on the daily, then the next level to watch would be the Bollinger Band moving average on the weekly, which is around 30 cents, which would be a nice 70% move from here, which would be not too shabby at all. I'm hoping that it'll get to that level in the coming weeks, but of course I do think that April is going to be pretty choppy. But again, to really zoom out and say, okay, how low could Algo go? Again, same thing, similar to ADA, or I guess ADA previously, more similar to Link, you can see that right now Algorand is around the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly. It's just below that, like literally like a couple percentage points below. So that, it's room. I guess it's something that justifies caution, but it's not bearish yet unless we see a really big rollover, like a break below this level. There's no real reason to be concerned just yet. It's still holding this level, and again, we can see that similarly in the previous cycle that there was a squeeze and then a big move higher, and now we're seeing a pretty tight squeeze here. We saw a little bit of a fake out. I think it was late last year, but I do think that squeeze is eventually going to come. It's going to be a nice big squeeze to the upside, and who knows, cycle top for Algo wouldn't surprise me if it's somewhere around like $3 or something like that, right? From this level, like something like a 10x return, it sounds crazy, it sounds amazing, but it's pretty standard in crypto, and I do think that this is something we're going to see for many altcoins. For ADA, a little bit trickier, it's a little bit larger. For Link, same idea. I do think that Link could do quite well. Could it get to like something like $70, $80, close to 100? Probably. I think $100 is something a lot of people are looking for. So maybe we would see, I don't know, like a cycle top, something like $85 or $90, right? With a lot of front running, which, from the current level wouldn't be too shabby at all, something like a 6 or 7x. And then in ADA's case, and again, I'm just like talking off the cuff here, guys. Like I'm not making any bold predictions. We're going to just have to play things by ear. But if I were to guess, I would say that ADA's cycle top would also be something around like $5, like some really key psychological level that a lot of people are watching, especially when you consider that like around 50 cents has kind of been this range. If you see around 45 to 50 cents has been this range where a lot of people have been accumulating. A lot of people are probably seeing $5 as like that comfy 10x return target, right? So it would make sense to me that the ADA would get to around $5 as the cycle top. Could it go higher? Always, especially with all this DeFi stuff and stablecoins, ADA could go a lot higher. But for now, let's just say, with as things stand today, I would say that something around $5 would be a realistic cycle top for ADA. So if you did make it this far, then you got some extra alpha there. And if you did make it this far, guys, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, ping that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.